is Madelyn Genskow. I'm the daughter of Isaiah and Genevieve Moore Cornelius. I was born in August 25th, 1941 on my family's family farm on Moore Road on the Oneida Indian Reservation. And I grew up and stayed on the reservation until I turned about 20, when I left to marry my husband in California. I'm talking today about the Chicago Corners School, otherwise known as, its official name was Oneida State Graded, but we all called it Chicago Corners School because that whole area was known as Chicago Corners. And but that building was also known as the Tribal Building because after the tribe bought the school building, it was an official seat of the government of the Oneida tribe. I'd like to read to you a letter that I wrote to the business committee, and it's going to be on the business committee agenda this coming Wednesday. To the Oneida Business Committee and management of the Oneida tribe, I'm writing to plead that you not demolish Oneida State Graded School, aka Chicago Corner School, aka the Tribal Building. At one time, it was a very beautiful building. It had big windows and hardwood floors and was said to have been built in 1917. On Thursday, October 3rd, 2013, I spoke with Karina Williams from the Oneida Cultural Heritage Center. I said we only have a few landmark buildings left from long ago on the reservation. The Episcopal Church, the Parish Hall, and the Methodist Fellowship Hall come to mind. Besides serving as our school, Chicago Corner School was the seat of the Oneida government at one time. Karina said that to be listed on the National Registry required one of three things. It is connected to a very important event or person, or it might meet the requirement. A third thing is the architectural style of the building. She said that there is a rumor that the 9 Oneida chiefs met there to discuss land claims, but there is no documentation. I feel an ad should be run in the Galawizaks, our tribal newspaper, to see if there are any Oneidas, or if someone from the Bureau of Indian Affairs can testify to this happening. Also, Irene Moore was the first woman chairman of the Oneida tribe. She told me she was contacted by people from all over the country congratulating her and asking if there was anything they could do to help. It was during this time that so many federal benefits started coming to the tribe, like HUD, housing, and the Head Start program. Perhaps Irene Moore would be that very important person who was connected to that building. Could she have used that building as her office? I am asking the business committee to use the money that was going to be used to destroy the building, to repair the roof, to prevent further damage, and to put money in the 2015 building fund to restore it. I feel the new part that was added to the building should be torn down. I feel that the parish hall is in constant use by the Oneida people, and the school could be used in the same way. And I plan to present, I'm not going to be available on Wednesday, unfortunately. Won't be able to be there, but I plan to turn this letter in to the business committee to have it be read at that meeting. And with regard to my experiences at Chicago Corners School, my father, Isaiah Cornelius, as I said, we had a farm on Moore Road, and my father was paralyzed on his left side from an accident when he was in his 30s, and this would happen around 1937. And when I was a young girl going to school at Chicago Corners, my father was hired by the school district to pick up and drive the local students to the school, because our area was the furthest area from Chicago Corners. The families that were picked up was Nancy and Anderson Summers family, Pete Smith and Leona Smith's family, me of course, and then Peter and Davy Danforth's family. And anyway, my father, even though he was paralyzed on his left side, he could still drive a car. He had a knob on the wheel that he could turn the steering wheel. Yeah, he had been in an accident in a gravel pit where he was working, and that's what caused him to be paralyzed on his left side. I'd like to comment about a friend of mine who I went to school with, Margaret Summers. Now she's known as Maggie Firmenich, and she was a wonderful artist. She could draw a picture, like to copy a picture out of a coloring book with freehand and have it be exactly the way it was in the coloring book. And because of that, the teachers would have her make Christmas scenes on the chalkboards at Christmas time. And she would pick some of us sometimes to help her, and she would outline like for the poinsettias and etc. She would outline that, and then we would fill it in, some of the, the ones that were she asked to help. And also she was a wonderful baseball player. She could really throw that ball. And at Christmas time in those days at Chicago Corners School, and even at the Oneida Methodist Church where I attended, every child had a part. These days, it usually doesn't go that way. Certain kids are picked out to have a part. But in those days, every child had a part, even if it was just a small poem to memorize. And also, I remember we used to make rings with construction paper that we would hang on the Christmas tree. We'd do that at school. Across the street from the school was Moss's store. It was a grocery store, and they had a number of other things also. And my parents had a running tab there that they would pay up every month. And so anyway, I remember at one point I got to the idea that, seeing how my parents just went there and bought things without having to have money, that I could do that too. And so a few times I got some potato chips or candy bar or whatever, and then my mother read on the bill, when she got the bill, she was surprised to see potato chips and candy bars. So anyway, that put a stop to my my bill. And also Hotkiewicz Cheese Factory was located there, and that is where my family hauled their milk. And I remember also at one point, I think it was when I was in the 4th grade, we took a trip to Madison. Some of us went on a trip to Madison, and we went with some of the kids from Pine Grove, which was located on Highway 54. Some of the teachers that were there were Miss Garvey, Mrs. Ryan, Mr. Geenan, and Don Schlegel. And I had a very difficult time to learn how to read when I was little. And I think probably part of the reason was they weren't teaching phonics in those days. And Miss Garvey was my 4th grade teacher. And Mrs. Ryan, well, first Miss Garvey taught from 1st grade to 4th grade. And Mrs. Ryan at that time taught from 5th grade to 8th grade. And I was due to go into Mrs. Ryan's class, and she was a very strict teacher. She was also the principal of the school. And seeing how I didn't know how to read yet, they decided to hold me back. And up to that point, a friend of mine, I knew, Oneida was very smart, and she liked to do homework, so I used to let her do my homework until I found out that if I didn't do my own work, I was going to get held back. I thought, well, if they're going to do that, I guess I better shape up. So anyway, at one point, Mrs. Ryan had some of us were having difficulty come into her upper room, and she wrote on the blackboard, I'll never forget this, she wrote on the blackboard, grass, pass, and I think it was mass. And then she said, do you see anything common in these words? And then she took her chalk and she underlined ass. And the whole room broke out in laughter. And that was my first phonics lesson. And so after that I struggled to still, but I started to read. But I think for one thing, I think I had so little faith in myself when I was smaller that I can remember when I was maybe in second grade and holding a book in my hand at our house and thinking to myself and believing with all my little heart that I would never know how to read a book like that. And I also believed that I would never be able to find my way to Green Bay and back. I just didn't have no faith that I could ever do that. And anyway, when I got to 8th grade, I had Don Schlegel for a teacher. And he was the most wonderful teacher anybody could ever ask for. He was a local man. He had attended Chicago Corners himself at one time. And he lived maybe a mile from the school. And he was, our previous teacher had been, Mrs. Ryan had left, and so we had another man teacher. And our previous teacher had been one of those teachers that has teachers' pets. And anyway, for some reason, he didn't like me. And I was kind of a goody two-shoes kid because my parents had told me, my father had told me, don't ever come home and say that, he told all us kids in our family, don't ever come home and disagree with the teacher. They say you disagree with the teacher because the teacher's the boss and the teacher is always right. And so anyway, when Mr. Gieden left and Mr. Schlegel came, I felt, oh no, another man teacher, because he, you know, the other one had been my first man teacher. But Mr. Schlegel was wonderful, and he was fair to everybody, and he really cared whether we learned or not. He impressed on us the importance of graduating from high school, and so anyway, I did graduate, and then I went on to high school and graduated from high school in 1960. And I can remember also when we went to Chicago Corner School that at one time we were bused to Seymour for some kind of shot. I don't know if that was when the polio epidemic was going on, or just, I don't remember just what shot that was for. But anyway, I also remember we used to take goiter pills. They would hand them out in school. And when I first started at Chicago Corners, we had outdoor bathrooms, outdoor toilets. But by the time I was in the upper grades, we did have indoor bathrooms. And you came in the door, and there was a landing right away, and part of the steps went down to the basement where there was an auditorium down there, and part of the steps went up to the classrooms. And to one side was the girls' cloakroom, and bathroom, and to the other side was the boys' cloakroom and bathroom, and then there were two pretty good sized rooms in that school, the one for 1st to 4th and the other one for 5th through 8th. I can remember when Don Schlegel taught our school, that Christmas we had a Christmas program where we put on a play that wasn't about Christmas. And that was the first time I ever got to act in a play, and I just loved it. And my friend Yvonne Danforth had been, she was going to play the part of a black maid in the play. And I wanted to play that part because I wanted to really play up the Southern accent. And so anyway, she agreed that I could take that part. And like I said, it was a real lot of fun. And I asked Don Schlegel, Mr. Schlegel, how he's going to make me look like a darker person. And so that night he took me in the furnace room and he rubbed some soot on my face. We didn't have no professional makeup or nothing, but that's what he did, you know. And anyway, those are some of my memories of Chicago Corner School. And I do hope that we will work to save that building, and it will always exist as a landmark on the Oneida Reservation.